Good morning, everyone. I'm Graham Webb from Sunshine Coast Council. I've been privileged to work with people like Mike and a lot of the passionate people around the room here in the Pumicestone catchment for about 10 years now. And I'm just going to belatedly make a couple of points about why Mike is uniquely positioned to talk about our unique Pumicestone Passage catchment. And then if my memory serves me well enough, I'll remember two questions that I read before I got up here that have come through that Mentimeter. And I do encourage you, there are a couple of teething problems, but all the way through this session, what we can't address, what Mike can't answer here, we're going to feed that to our speakers and put together a compilation of the questions that come out and answers to those, and the information that comes out will be another product of this convergence. But about Mike, Mike has been the manager of the Queensland Wetlands Program for the state government over nearly 20 years. And he's done a lot of work, and you can see on his biography on page 6 there a brief overview of where Mike's come from. But really the Wetlands Program is his opus magnus, no doubt. And Mike and team have, in a similar way to this Pumicestone Passage, and will gladly, Mike, continue to be the crash test dummies for your catchment work, because it's so valuable to do this. But what he's done with us and a lot of the stakeholders around this room, and then all around the state, is establish a foundation of knowledge and understanding of these important wetland systems. So he's very passionate about that. And but to translate that into action. So these tools, he's always evolving, and the team are evolving these tools. And you heard him, he's got ideas always about the next iteration and the next improvement. But the third thing, probably relevant to this conference, and if you get the chance to have a chat to Mike over the next 3 days, he's a font of knowledge. But I do know that he's particularly fond of our Pumicestone Passage and its catchment. So we're very privileged to have him here with his presentation already, but also for his input for the rest of the conference. So Mike, that was a belated introduction. It was going to be at the beginning, but yeah, thank you so much for being here and sharing your time and your insights. And we look to more of that, not just in this convergence, but in the years to come. And before I ask you to clap him once again, there were a couple of questions, and they regarded probably the Ramsar status first of all. I'll ask them both, and you might be able to combine your answers. But does the Ramsar status actually give, I'm paraphrasing this, but teeth to more protection to our Pumicestone Passage, being a Ramsar wetland? And in particular, for is there a chance of a population cap or some such thing to really, I guess, strengthen that protection going forward? So real interest in protecting this catchment of ours. So, thanks, Mark.
I don't know about the population cap. I don't think I have any authority to talk about that. But in terms of Ramsar status, absolutely it gives a very strong regulatory control, because it's an internationally important site. It's actually picked up under the EPBC Act as a matter of national environmental significance. So it's got so anything that might affect the ecological character of the Ramsar site does need to be submitted to the Australian minister. Basically, it has to go through that process. So there's a very high bar in terms of the actual legislative control and processes associated with it. It's very similar to World Heritage. And if there are any potential changes to that site, Australia and the Australian government has to go in front of the international conference of parties to explain why certain sites might be changing their ecological character. And I can assure you the Australian government doesn't like doing that in front of, whole international, whole international groups. So it's quite a high bar. And in terms of population control, I'll have a drink sometime and tell you about my personal views on that, but I can't say anything about that in terms of the Queensland Wetlands Programme. We haven't reached on that as part of our programmes yet. No, and I don't think we will.
For everyone, we've got an exciting career here. First, a photographer out and about on the Pumicestone Passage, and the question was regarding jet skis and whether that's compatible with the Ramsar Convention.
Yep. Well, I suppose the Ramsar Convention is about the wise use and the management of the values. The way that there's no actual specific group set up to manage the Ramsar site. So we manage the Ramsar site through our marine parks and our national parks, and also with the council reserves. So that's actually how we give effect to the management of the Ramsar site and the management of the values. One of the primary mechanisms from the marine parks perspective is they develop zoning plans, and the zoning plans have actually got areas where certain activities are allowed and where other activities are not allowed. So the highest of those protections are the protection zones, which are very similar to protected areas like national parks and so on. So there are a certain number of those areas within the Pumicestone, and then there are other areas where it's general use or habitat protection. So there are different mechanisms throughout the Pumicestone that's actually associated with the marine park that allow for different activities to occur. So it's a hard balancing act. It's a really hard balancing act. The expectations that people have and then trying to balance those with the natural ones is quite hard. But that's actually the primary mechanism by which those values are maintained. And another one that's quite difficult to manage is the whole issue of shorebirds and shorebird roost sites and the management of shorebirds. It's a difficult one because people want to walk their dogs, so there's actually trying to be separation of areas for the various different values to, I suppose, coexist. Yeah. And we'd love to see your photographs in the future, and if you come up with really nice ones, you never know, we might be able to get them onto our systems if you're prepared to do that.
Thanks, Mike. And,